Hello everyone, welcome to another video of Into the Hive Mind. I know it's been a bit since my last video. I basically was just waiting for to actually have some real content to give you guys. I have participated in 3 tournaments since the last video that I made, and actually did pretty well in a lot of them, but only the most recent one was I actually able to play the new book. Unfortunately, Crusher Stampede is what I had to play at the previous 2, as the new book was not quite allowed yet. So thought I would give you guys just a rundown on my most recent event. However, I guess if any of you really want me to have another video that talks about my Crusher Stampede lists, I did end up taking second running a Hierophant at a major, which was pretty cool. However, I'm assuming since that list is no longer valid, I'm assuming most of you probably don't care. And that's totally fine, because we've got new bugs to talk about. Basically, we just had the Battle Shock GT, which is conveniently about 5 minutes away from my house. For the first time ever, I finally had a major that I didn't have to drive multiple hours to. And I got to play the brand new bugs, which was super exciting. And essentially, I'm just going to go over my list and then each one of my matchups and let you guys know how I did. So my list, I did decide to go Hive Fleet Kraken. My reasoning for this is twofold. Leviathan, I do think, is the strongest Hive Fleet. However, they're just not my playstyle at all. I really don't like slow lumbering moving forward. And I'm very much more all about speed. And I think the speed is necessary to counter the Eldar matchup, which is probably our biggest nemesis in the game right now, specifically Hail of Doom, is pretty effective. So anyways, my list is a single Kraken Battalion. I do have 2 extra Warlord traits and 2 extra relics. So I start with a whopping 8 CP. And let's start with a rundown on all my characters and extra relics and warlord traits that I am taking. So I do have the bog standard Neurothrope with the Synaptic Tendrils warlord trait to give 2 different units the 3d6 to cast. He also has the Resonance Barb for an extra +1 to cast. So normally he's giving out 2 different people 3d6 to cast, and then using the +2 on his own cast, staying well outside of deny range to cast through our synaptic links, and basically give buffs wherever I need on the board. And then speaking of buffs, my next HQ is a Tyranid Prime. This guy is actually awesome. I kind of threw him in my list last minute, and I'm so happy that I did. He gives out reroll 1s to wound to a core unit, and then I spent a CP to give him the extra warlord trait to also give out +1 to hit to a core unit. So this one guy is giving +1 to hit and reroll 1s to wound to any core unit that I want. And the third HQ is my Winged Hive Tyrant with the Reaper of Obliterax relic. I think this guy is staple and is in every single list that I have seen. The killing power from this guy is just insane, especially if your event rules that the mortals that he does also cannot have Feel No Pains taken against it, which the event I was at did, and I believe Dallas Open did as well, and that seems to be the consensus moving forward. Psychic power wise, I gave the Neurothrope, Catalyst, and Onslaught because those are my 2 most important powers, and so I want them to be on the guy that's hanging out in the back and can't be denied. Whereas the Winged Hive Tyrant has Paroxysm and the Horror just as the powers that need to be targeting enemy units from up close, and the Winged Hive Tyrant is the guy to do that. Then in the troops, Warriors are really good, guys. I don't know if you've gotten that memo. I'm sure you have, but yeah. Warriors are insane for their points cost. So I took a lot of them. I have a big unit of 9 and 2 units of 5. All of them with Double Bone Sword, Deathspitters, and Adrenal Glands. The Adrenal Glands, to make them Strength 8, is absolutely necessary in my opinion. If you're running a unit of 5 or more, you should have Adrenal Glands. The other reason for this is the Adrenal Surge stratagem. 1 CP for an extra attack makes these guys just absolute monsters. Multiple times I've had a unit of 5 get killed down to a unit of 3, and then that unit of 3 uses the Adrenal Surge stratagem to still have 15 attacks and pick up whatever I want them to. It's pretty gross. Then in the elites, I actually filled up the entire elite section. I do have Deathleaper, no upgrades on him, just or no warlord trait. Just Deathleaper by himself. He's fantastic as just like a random niche guy that I can throw in, and between using the pheromone stratagem or his own traits to turn off stratagems on opponents, he's a very just kind of key tool that I don't use very often, but having him there as a choice and being able to use him when I need him is fantastic. The final character is the Parasite of Mortrex, carrying both a Warlord trait and a Relic, the Warlord trait Alien Cunning to count as 5 OBSEC models, and the Relic of the Gestation sack to spawn a unit of D3+1 Rippers once per game. And basically this is this guy's just there to grab objectives. He kind of hangs around in the back until I need him, and then he goes forward, does an action, or spawns Rippers. He's huge. I would have him in every list, honestly, especially if you're in Kraken and that auto advance 8, he can go 24 and take whatever objective you need. It's amazing. To fill out the rest of the elite slot, I have a Maleceptor, just one, not going too crazy. This guy's good, but not as good as I think the internet is saying he is. Honestly, he's the distraction Carnifex because of how much hype the internet has given him. In my experience, he's not doing that many mortal wounds, maybe 8 a turn, because I don't know, maybe I'm not playing him correctly, but honestly, most of my opponents are just so terrified of him that that's who they shoot, which is fine with me because he's the most durable unit in my entire army. Also, I've got 3 Zoanthropes. You absolutely have to have them just to have the turn of your invuln in a key turn. I think that's actually a necessity in any list, which I wish it wasn't such a necessity, but every game I've played without Zoanthropes, I have lost just because you need invulns. On that note, also 3 Venomthropes for -1 to hit. Yeah, you need these guys as well. They're just, for 100 points, they bring too much to the table not to bring them. And final 2 slots in the elites are 2 units of 3 Pyrovores. These guys are good and points efficient. They're not necessary, is what I found. I really like them. I think I'm going to keep them in the list, but they're not as key a component as I'd originally thought they would be. But for 30 points, a model that is toughness 5, 5 wounds, and a 3-up save, that's hard to beat. And their flamer is actually decent. And then I finish off this list with a Harpy. I gave it Dermic Symbiosis. If you're running 1 Harpy, you always take this. If you're running 2 Harpies, you give 1 Dermic Symbiosis and the other one Synapse. But I am only running 1 Harpy, so Dermic Symbiosis it is. Obviously, heavy Venom cannons. And then finally, a Tyrannocyte. You can either put the Maleceptor or the 2 units of 3 Pyrovores inside this Tyrannocyte. I ended up putting in the 6 Pyrovores every single game. Because I wanted the buffs on the Maleceptor. And maybe that's why he wasn't doing that many wounds for me. Was he didn't get close enough super often. But again, my opponent just seemed to be terrified of the Maleceptor and always focused it down first. The Tyrannocyte was great though. I did pay the 10 points to give it Synapse, and that is huge because it deep strikes in with the Pyrovores, and then normally that's the turn that I'm giving out my invuln save. So if to any return fire, now my Pyrovores that deep strike in have a 5-up invuln, which makes them pretty survivable. Or alternatively, having Synapse on the Tyrannocyte is pretty hilarious for use of the Shard Lure stratagem. Uh, Basically, it's only hitting on 5s, so you don't need to worry about accidentally killing too much of whatever you're shooting at, and then just spend your 1 CP to get your 3d6 to charge. And because it can deep strike anywhere on the board, essentially, you can always get an angle on whatever you're trying to charge, and it can give you that 3d6 to charge. Also, the Tyrannocyte, people just don't want to kill it, and it moves 8 inches. The number of times I just left it on an objective and moved everyone else forward was like 4 out of my 6 games. And nobody wanted to kill the Tyrannocyte, so he just got to sit there and hold an objective all game, which was phenomenal. Anyways, that's the list. Just a quick synopsis of it again, just running through every unit. I've got Neurothrope, Tyranid Prime, Flying Hive Tyrant with Reaper of Obliterax, unit of 9 warriors, 2 units of 5 warriors, no Venom cannons, Deathleaper, Maleceptor, 2 units of 3 Pyrovores, 3 Venomthropes, 3 Zoanthropes, the Parasite of Mortrex, a Harpy, and a Tyrannocyte. So getting nice use out of tons of different data sheets. I honestly loved the list. It was so much fun to play. Very much my play style of kind of having a toolbox for everything, having the speed to get to apply those tools where I needed them was tons of fun. So anyways, the event was the Battleshock GT. This event was meant to have 60 players, and that's how many we had signed up. Maybe we only had like 58, but it was certainly a lot of players that then, of course, day of did have several drops. I think by the time we started, we were actually all the way down to only 44 players. But it was still scheduled to be a 6-round event. And with 44 players, it is still possible to have 2 undefeated after 5 rounds. So 6 rounds did actually make sense. So getting into it, round 1, I played against Mario Capizzo. He is the kind of eternal TO out in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so this was his first time playing a competitive event in about 3.5 years. And I felt pretty bad that he pulled me round 1, and not just me, but me with my codex now being more powerful than it has ever been. And yeah, he's basically trying to learn 9th edition. So it was not much of a game, but he was playing Blood Angels, phenomenally painted Blood Angels. That's always seems to be the case. These guys show up with these absolutely gorgeous armies. And yeah, Mario also went on to win the raffle and get a free professionally painted Warhound Titan. So that's pretty cool. But Mario's Blood Angels list was not competitive at all. He had a Fire Raptor. He was running 2 units of 3 Eliminators. And then some Interceptors, which is pretty good, in addition to Mephiston, Lamarty's 5 Sanguinary Guard, and then 20 Death Company. Which, I mean, those are certainly good. And definitely did a lot of damage to me, but essentially in this game, we were playing Mission 11, Recover the Relics, which is Hammer and Anvil's 6 objectives, 1 in each of your deployment zones, 4 in No Man's Land. With this, I took Stranglehold, Assassinate, and Banners. And honestly, I think I took those 3 secondaries almost every single game. That's just what the list is good at doing. My opponent took Assassinate because I have 5 characters behind enemy lines because he has Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, and characters all deep striking in my deployment zone, as well as Oaths of Moment. Unfortunately, I won the role to go first, and honestly, I don't remember much about this game other than it was kind of a slaughter. I flew forward and I auto-advanced 8 on the Maleceptor. I didn't even deep strike my Pyrovores in turn 1. And the Maleceptor killed off all of his incursors off of his objective that he had scouted onto. And the Flyrant killed the other unit off of his other objective. And my Harpy shot at his Fire Raptor and put it down to like 4 wounds left. And then, yeah, his return fire basically bounced off, and then he failed, I think, 3 different 8-inch charges all in a row to just not even get the attack. So not only was like the matchup unfair to begin with, the dice also just didn't let him have a turn 1. So yeah, and then my turn 2, I picked up all 6 Eliminators and most of his Sanguinary Guard. And then the turn after, I killed Mephiston and his Sanguinary Ancient and all of his Death Company and Lamartes, who also all failed their charge out of reserve, which was unfortunate. Yeah, it was very much a massacre. I hope Mario had a good time, at least for the rest of the event. I know it was a little harsh, and I am sorry. But final score for that event, or that game, was 98-34. I only got 13 for Assassinate because he only had 4 characters. But I essentially tabled him on turn 3, and yeah, maxed primary, maxed everything, just could only get 13 on Assassinate. Moving on, though, I then go against Travis Armstrong, who is playing Grey Knights. This was very much a game. Travis actually got second at this event the year previously, and he had beaten my Harridan list by 2 points. So this was a bit of a grudge match, and definitely was aiming to get some revenge, but also, you know, have a great game. We had a great game last time. We absolutely had a great game this time. We were playing mission 33, Secure Missing Artifacts. That is the diagonal deployment with the 5 standard objectives. I think 5 of the 9 missions played this exact same objective deployment, with 1 in the center, 4 essentially on kitty corner to that center objective. And with you deploying diagonally, and then you move the objective 6 inches for this mission and choose which one is your opponent's priority. With this, both of us, moved 1 out of terrain and declared that one as our opponent's priority target. But I took Stranglehold, Assassinate, and Raise the Banners. As I said, I think I took that just about every mission. And he took Stranglehold, Purifying Rituals, as Grey Knights do, and no prisoners. My list does give up 13 points for no prisoners because I have so many multi-wound infantry. Travis did end up winning the roll to go first, and he basically decided to push everything forward onto the center of the table and try and take out my Harpy. He was very scared of my Harpy just picking up his Dread Knights, and so because of that, with him getting first turn, he put everyone on the center objective and basically fired away. He did kill it. It took his entire army because I was actually -2 to hit. I intentionally deployed it next to the Venomthropes because he could give out +1 to hit from his Tech Marine onto all of his Dread Knights, or at least onto one of them. So being -2 to hit was actually relevant, and because of that, it did take his entire shooting phase to kill my Harpy, which then positioned his entire army on the center of the table, well within charging range of pretty much everything I had. And this just turned into an absolute slugfest where I just immediately charged into combat and picked up a ton of stuff, but not everything. And we just traded blows back and forth this entire game. My Pyrovores deep struck back in his back table edge and tried to harass, but honestly did so little damage because of Armor of Contempt and him being in cover. He still had a 3-up save even against my AP2 Flamers. So I think each Pyrovore squad killed 1 Strike Marine, and then the drop pod itself basically tried to steal his home objective that he just left his Tech Marine behind on. He ended up having to pop his once per game OBSEC on that character to hold on to his primary objective before he could finally turn around and kill the drop pod, which, was a nice little nuisance units. Unfortunately, I kind of sacrificed the Pyrovores. I charged them in knowing full well they were going to die, and I was planning on spending my 2 CP for Acid Blood. But then I realized I only had 2 CP left, and I'd much rather pop my Flyrant into reserve. So I basically just threw my Pyrovores away for free, which was unfortunate, but it did keep my Hive Tyrant alive, and my Hive Tyrant was 100% obliterating the Grey Knights, turning off his Feel No Pains against all those mortals was extremely effective. But yeah, basically we were just duking it out back and forth this entire time, just over the center, pretty much in melee the whole time. And at the end of this absolute bloodbath, I had 3 models left and he had 1. He had his single Tech Marine left on his home objective, and I had, I think, my Neurothrope, a Zoanthrope, and Deathleaper. And yeah, those were the only remaining combatants at the end of that absolute bloodbath. But I did, because of all my OBSEC, manage to eke out the win on primary. Essentially, I had 43 primary to his 32. And then in secondaries, because of Tyranid Psychic Denial, making him -1 to cast and me having access to 5 different denies, I actually focused purely on denying his Psychic Ritual, and I did. I actually kept him only down to 6 on Purifying Ritual. He did get all 13 for No Prisoners, as well as 6 for Stranglehold, whereas I maxed Stranglehold because, again, I have so much access to OBSEC between all my warriors and the Parasite of Mortrex. I think another key moment in this game was the Parasite of Mortrex spawned the Rippers turn 4 when there was almost nothing left. And those 3 Rippers actually sat on the center and my opponent's home objective because I had pulled it forward to be really close to the center. And so 1 unit of 3 Rippers that was spawned from the Parasite at the bottom of turn 4 gave him 0 primary for turn 5, as well as gave me Stranglehold when I only had a few models left. And that was a huge point swing, and I ended up winning that game 85-67. Very great game, though. Travis was a fantastic opponent, and I'd be happy to play him anytime. Round 3 was against Marshall. Marshall Peterson, and he was playing Blood Axe Orks. This guy's a phenomenal player. He actually just won one of our majors about 5 months ago that we held. And this was like a 60-person 6-round event, and he won the whole thing with his Ork list. At the time, he was playing kill rigs. Now his list has 0 kill rigs. He's much more going for bomb squigs. His list had something like, he has 3 units of 10 tank bustas, all with double bomb squigs. And yeah, he basically, this list is built to just mortal you to death in order to get around the Armor of Contempt. And it did exceptionally well. Marshall Peterson did end up getting 3rd place at this event with the Blood Axe Orks, and a fair few people on the internet have been talking about his list. But for this game, we were playing Tide of Conviction, which is Dawn of War, hold 2, hold 3, with the weird, janky objective placement in the middle. Basically, the objectives being off-kilter from each other. And let me tell you, a Dawn of War deployment style against mass orcs that really want to be in your face, a hold 2, hold 3 is not the mission I want to be playing against him. I did win the roll to go first, though, which was pretty big. Actually, sorry, in this app it says that I went first. I'm almost positive that he went first, because what ended up happening is he ran forward, and he definitely went first, because he went for ran forward, and his Burnabama, basically I was castled everything behind 1 piece of terrain all around my Venomthropes, and his Burnabama flame came forward and did like 3 or 4 mortals to every single unit in my army right off the bat. And then a whole bunch of bomb squigs put my Flyrant down to only 2 wounds left. But once again, my opponent basically came forward to me, put his entire army in the center, which then allowed me to throw everything I had into him and get that first turn charge. He had tons of units in battle wagons, and I managed to pop both battle wagons that he had turn 1, between the Harpies shooting and a ton of mortal wounds from the Maleceptor, in addition to the Zoanthropes. So I opened up both battle wagons, and he was so bunched up, it actually forced him to put all of his guys in very awkward positions. And I think 3 tank bustas even just had to die just because they couldn't be placed. That's how squished together he was. Because he had 17 guys in one truck and 20 in the other, or in one battle wagon, 20 in the other. So having to get out suddenly almost 40 models all in the center of the board became pretty obnoxious. But essentially, I was able to kill all of that, and then I got the charge off and picked up I want to say like a third of his army. My Flyrant kind of sat around doing nothing because he only had 2 wounds left. He was going to charge his Burnabama, but I managed to just kill it with like super smites from Zoanthropes and Neurothrope. Yeah, and then once again we just kind of had a bloodbath in the center. It took probably 45 minutes for us to play turn 1, so much so that my opponent actually asked for a clock. I don't blame him, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall of one of us is going to come out on top, and turn 1 and 2, maybe turn 3 is going to take forever, but turn 4 or 5, one of us is going to have nothing left. And that is what happened. The Tyranids did come out on top after 3 rounds of bloody close combat, just again trading punches. It actually felt incredibly thematic because I deep struck my Pyrovores in his back home corner, the top left essentially of my deployment zone, and my Flyrant had flown off the table and deep struck back on the top right, and forming this perfect tri-point pincer where all my forces were coming in from the front, and then Pyrovores, Tyrannocyte, and Flyrant were coming in both from behind him. And he was like, I'm completely surrounded on all sides, and Encircle the Prey actually worked and did as it was supposed to and encircled him, and there was really nothing he could do. At the end of turn 3, he had basically nothing left. I intentionally left Snickrot alive because I had taken Mental Interrogation rather than Assassinate, because he only had 3 characters, so I went for Psychic Interrogation instead. And yeah, I tabled him, but I left Snickrot alive turn 3, 4, and 5 in order to continue interrogating him. And so because of that, the final score in that game, I maxed primary, and I got all my secondaries except for Psychic Interrogation turn 1, because in order to deny me points, he intentionally stuck all of his characters inside transports. So yeah, final score of that game was 97 to 51. He did manage to get 12 assassinate points in addition to 8 for no prisoners, but he also took engage on all fronts, and he only got that turn 1 and 2 because again, it was a giant bloodbath in the middle, and he ran out of units a lot quicker than I think he thought he was going to. Finally, round 4. So at the end of day 1, I am 3-0. I'm in second place, just behind my teammate Ben Neal. And day 1 had random pairings. Day 2 was ranked pairings, or Swiss pairings. So both me and my teammate knew that we were going to immediately have to play each other first game of day 2. And this is Ben Neal playing Grey Knights. He's playing a very similar list to what he had. He ended up taking 7th at LVO with, except now his Grey Knights have Armor of Contempt. Pretty much the only thing that he changed from his LVO list is he dropped one of his Dread Knights. He'd originally been running 4. Now he ran a Grandmaster and 2 others for a total of 3 Dread Knights, and with those extra points, got 5 Paladins with Armor of Contempt and the Psychic Power for +1 save, so they can essentially have a negative 1-up armor save in cover. It's pretty ridiculous. But in our game, we ended up playing Death and Zeal. So this is the circle in the middle with you playing table quarters, and again, the 5 standard objectives, 1 in the center, 4 of them kitty corner to it. In this mission, I absolutely wanted to go first. One of the things that Ben is exceptionally good at is terrain deployment, and he beats me every time on it. I don't know really how to explain it. I just always feel completely outplayed just in the terrain setup whenever I play against him. And once again, that was the case where as soon as we'd finished deploying armies, I looked at it and I'm like, man, if he gets to go first, he gets to redeploy 3 units, gets to see and shoot whatever he wants. Whereas if I get to go first, I at least get to reposition where I actually want to be, get some of my defensive buffs up, and I'm not just going to lose this game right off the bat. Thankfully, I did get to go first, get up all my defensive buffs, and everything just kind of moved forward. The Maleceptor popped his 6-inch bubble of -1 strength, and my Flyrant auto advanced 8 went 25 forward, and I was going to charge him into a Dread Knight, but I actually saw that I was right next to his 5 Paladins, and after kind of thinking about the profile, the Reaper of Obliterax is absolutely perfect for picking up his entire unit of Paladins, because I am AP 4 base, AP 5 in the first round of combat for Kraken, so his ridiculous Armor of Contempt and save does nothing, plus his 6-up Feel No Pain that he had for having his Apothecary nearby doesn't work against the Reaper of Obliterax. So yeah, my Flyrant just charged his 5 Paladins, picked up the entire unit, and then disappeared into reserve. And he was understandably salty about that. It's a stupid ability to be able to do with him not getting to have any kind of play back into it at all. Yeah, just picking up like what I would imagine is a 200-point unit for free for 1 CP essentially, without him being able to hit me back at all. But with that, I did get with this game, I took Grind Him Down because he denies me from any kind of psychic secondary, and this mission in particular is really bad for banners, which is what I'd been normally taking. So instead I took Assassinate, Stranglehold, and Grind. Him being Grey Knights took Stranglehold, Purifying Ritual, and no prisoners again because I give up 13 on that. But my turn 1, I pick up the 5 Paladins, and then he gets to basically shoot me back, and what he did was pick up the Venomthropes to take away my -1 to hit, and then he picked up my Maleceptor with all of his shooting. I think that's all he really killed, but that was certainly my 2 defensive tech pieces that he just wanted to remove early. Then my turn 2, I basically had to make a decision of, am I going for the Dread Knights or am I going for everything else? And I made the decision to go for everything else and basically just leave him with his 3 Dread Knights. And it worked. I killed absolutely everything except 3 Dread Knights and 2 characters. So he had his Librarian and his Apothecary left, and then all 3 Dread Knights just completely untouched. But I managed to pick up every single Strike Marine and every single Interceptor, sorry. And in addition to the Rhino that his Strike Marines had been in. On this note, Ben's most important unit is basically 10 Strike Marines that get the Chaplain buff for 6s to wound, do double wounds and double mortals as long as he's in that Tide, which he was in the entire game. For some reason, he just rolled really bad and charged his 10 Strike Marines into my brick of 9 Warriors. They did have Catalyst on them, but normally these 10 Strike Marines can pick up anything in the game that they touch. And instead, this time, he picked up only 5 of the 9 Warriors. And the 4 Warriors remaining, I spent 1 CP for an extra attack. They were fully buffed up with +1 to hit, reroll 1s to hit and wound. And so my 20 attacks went in, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s, AP 3 because Kraken. He had his 4-up invuln from Sanctuary, but at 2 damage each, I picked up all 10 Strike Marines. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin there, where his strongest unit just didn't do the damage it needed to do, and I got to pick it up for free. Yeah, it felt really bad doing that to a teammate, but don't worry, Ben came back as he always does. So the start of his turn 3, he has 5 models left, and I still have the vast majority of my army. But through just playing the correct game and having absolute stellar target priority, Ben kills everything that I have that can even hurt his Dread Knights. So then my turn 4 and 5, I can do basically nothing except I finally kill his Librarian for some Assassinate points. But because of that, Ben is just absolutely destroying my entire army with those 3 Dread Knights, and there's now nothing I can do about it. And we finished the game with me having 3 Warriors, my Prime, and my Neurothrope left. And Ben still has the 3 Dread Knights and his Apothecary left. And yeah, that that meant that we ended up having an incredibly close game where the score, I had maxed out my primary with 45, most of which coming from the direct assault because I was just playing a very aggressive game. And Ben had almost maxed out the primary. The only reason he didn't is because I gave him a 0 on turn 2, with my Flyrant basically having popped into reserve turn 1, turn 2 deep struck back into his back corner, made the 9-inch charge and killed all 5 Strike Marines off of that objective, which gave him a 0 primary. And because of that, he only got 40 primary, whereas I got 45. And then on secondaries, I got very little for grind. I got 3 points turn 1, and then 3 points turn 4 when I killed his Librarian, and he was unable to kill a full unit back. But yeah, I only got 6 points total for grind him down. I did get 12 for Stranglehold. The only turn that I didn't get it was turn 1. And then I got only 7 points on Assassinate. He had 4 characters, but his Grandmaster and his Apothecary were still left at the end of the game, so I only got 7 points for Assassinate. Whereas he got 9 points on Stranglehold to my 12. He got 8 points on Purifying Ritual to my 7 for Assassinate, but then he got 12 points on No Prisoners to my 6 for Grind Him Down. So that meant that I beat him by 5 on primary, and he beat me by 4 on secondary. So the final score was 80 to 79, Tyranid victory, just barely by a single point. Hell of a game. And Ben is an incredible player that you can absolutely never count out, because again, he was down to 5 models against basically my entire army, and he still absolutely made a game out of it. But now I'm 4-0, and going into round 5, I finally get the mirror match. Oddly enough, this is against another Matt, also playing Tyranids, also 4-0. However, his list is quite different from mine. He is very much playing what I believe the internet is saying is bitching about, is essentially the best I could say about his list. He's playing Leviathan. He is running 3 different Hive Tyrants, one of which the Leviathan Shard Gullet, shooting Walking Tyrant that has all the rerolls. And then he's playing a Mawclaw Flyrant with Lashwood Bonesword in addition to the Reaper of Obliterax Flyrant. He has 3 Tyrant Guard to protect them and make them very uninteractable with. And then in addition to his 3 Flyrant nonsense in Leviathan, he also has double Maleceptor and double Harpy, just to have all the cheese and really just kick you in the face. That's what this list does. It's ridiculously durable, and it punches obscenely hard. However, it does not play the objective game very well, because all he has is 3 units of 3 Warriors and 10 Hormagaunts as his troop choices. So once again, I knew my advantage was going to be in playing the objective secured game and just trying to survive, whereas his list and objective was very much just to table me as quickly as possible. So with this, I took Stranglehold to bring it down and banners, and he took Stranglehold to bring it down and no prisoners. He won the roll to go first, which I was very worried about because he had 2 Harpies to my 1, in addition to 2 Flyrants and a shooty Hive Tyrant. Thankfully, I just did Transhuman on my Harpy, and he shot both Shard Gullet and both Harpies into my Harpy to try and take it out. And only 1 Venom Cannon shot went through, the -1 to hit, 4-up Transhuman, 4-up Invuln. So my Harpy only took 4 damage and basically just bounced his entire army. Upon which time he was under the impression that you could not use Encircle the Prey turn 1. Because it says you cannot use this stratagem on the turn that you set the model up. And he's like, well, it's turn 1. I set the model up this turn. I disagreed with him. However, the judge came over and said, no, you can't use it turn 1. Which then meant that basically I killed both of his Harpies. And then on his turn 2, since I couldn't disappear either, he then killed my Harpy. So I guess it worked kind of in my favor because he ended up losing 2 guys to my 1. But the judge then immediately came over next round, said, never mind, you were right, I was wrong. Sorry about that. Yes, you can use it turn 1 because setting it up is not a turn. Anyways, but because of that, I did get to kill both of his Harpies. I basically asked him which one has the Invuln and which one has the Transhuman. He pointed them out, and I put the Reaper of Obliterax to charge the Transhuman one, spend a CP to reroll wounds, and I put all my Psychic Mortals against the one with the 4-up Invuln, and managed to pick up both. The other thing I did was auto-advance my 9 Warriors straight up the board, so they went 15 up, and then charged into his Maleceptor that he had moved forward, and yeah, with full buffs, 45 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 4s because of Transhuman, also strength 8 T8, rerolling 1s, AP 2 for 2, absolutely just picks up the entire Maleceptor. And then I had 9 Warriors with Catalyst just sitting in the middle of his entire army, which basically meant his turn 2 revolved around just doing everything he could to kill that 9-man brick, including charging in his Walking Hive Tyrant with Tyrant Guard with a unit of 3 Warriors. He then activated the Hive Tyrant first. I popped -1 damage, and between -1 damage and Catalyst, his Hive Tyrant had 5 attacks, 5 hits, 4 wounds. I saved 2 of them on my 5-up Invuln that I popped for the turn. And then I saved the 2 damage, or the 4 damage that went through. I saved 2 of them on Catalyst, so he didn't even kill a single Warrior. And then I interrupted and killed all the Hive Guard, or all the Tyrant Guard and the Warriors, which meant my unit was still perfectly healthy in combat with his Walking Hive Tyrant at the start of my turn. And yeah, it all kind of went downhill from there. I basically just then played cleanup because now all of a sudden he's down a Maleceptor, down 2 Harpies. I'm only down 1 Harpy, and the game kind of snowballed from there. And because of that, I ended up getting max primary, whereas he actually only got 10 points on primary. He only scored hold 1 on turn 2. Funnily enough, turn 3, my drop pod came in, and or my turn, bottom of 2, my drop pod came in with the Pyrovores, and the first unit killed all 3 of his Venomthropes, which was the whole reason I deep struck the pod there, and killed all 3 Venomthropes. So then the second unit had nothing to shoot, and I elected to shoot his Neurothrope that was on his home objective because it was no longer character protected after killing the Venomthropes. and I did 7 wounds, and he failed 3 of them on his 3-up invuln, and I just picked up the Neurothrope. So all of a sudden, he had 0 objectives for the rest of the game. And yeah, so he only got 4 points on primary, in addition to 10 points for Bring It Down and 8 for No Prisoners. He took Stranglehold, but unfortunately, due to terrain placement of forests and slowing him down and him being slow Leviathan, he actually got 0 Stranglehold for the entire game. Again, his army just doesn't play board control nearly as well as mine does. And so the final score of that game, where I maxed out Stranglehold, I maxed out Bring It Down, and I got 13 points on banners. This was the Dawn of War 5 objective mission where you can't scout deploy. Basically 3 objectives across the center, 1 in each of our deployment zones. So banners is kind of a bad choice on this one, but I didn't really have anything else to take. I only got 2 points on banners turn 2, 1 on turn 3, 3 on turn 4, but then by turn 5 I tabled him and I got 7. So I got 13 points there, and yeah, 98-38 victory, the Nid mirror match. At this point, I am 5-0, and I am actually the only person that is 5-0, just due to the essentially going into round 5, there were 3 undefeated players. Obviously, I beat the Tyranid guy, and on the second table was my teammate Ben, who had 1 loss being paired up, and he ended up winning his match. So then, yeah, at the end of round 5, I was in first, he was in second, and we basically ended up playing 1 more round because it was 6 rounds anyways. So this was now my tournament to lose. Essentially, if I lost this game, then my teammate Ben would end up winning the event because he beat me on battle points. But round 6 was up against Michael Mann playing Drukhari, a Prophets of Flesh list with 15 Grotesques, 3 units of 5. It's a very strong list. I'd actually played him the week before up in Cheyenne, and he was playing the same list. I did beat him at that one, but I was playing a very meme list of the Hierophant and the Harridan was my entire list, and basically in that game I got to go first and just pick up all of his Grotesques between 2 Titans. Obviously this time I'm playing a very different list, and it was a very different game, except I once again got to go first. And basically, the Reaper of Obliterax Flyrant flew forward, picked up 5 Grotesques, and then was about to pop up into reserve when the judge of the event told me, no, I can't use it turn 1, remember. So I got to leave my Flyrant there in the midst of 10 Grotesques, which then, of course, immediately killed him. At which point, before it was even my opponent's turn, he was like, no, never mind, you can pop it into reserve. But I was like, whatever, we're already past that point. He's dead. So, yeah, I basically lost a Flyrant when I shouldn't have, but it didn't end up mattering. Me getting first turn and picking up 5 Grotesques was big. And basically his 10 other Grotesques charged into my 5-man warrior squad, killed them. But then my 9-man warrior squad was the backup that then killed all 10 Grotesques. And essentially the rest of the army was fighting Drazar with 10 Incubi and a Court of the Archon. But between Venomthropes, Zoanthropes, Pyrovores, and 5 Warriors, and Deathleaper, and the Parasite, they were able to take out, and the Harpy, take out Drazar and his Incubi and the Court of the Archon. We didn't play past turn 3. My opponent just ran out of stuff. He basically had 2 Ravagers in the back firing Dark Lances at me, but when that's all you have, you've lost board control, especially because the mission we were playing was Data Scry Salvage, which is the 4 objectives in that diagonal center line. So, and it's a hold 2, hold 3. So when you only have 2 boats left that are kind of stuck sitting in your back corner, yeah, we called the game there, and Because of that, I got a 98-point win. Once again, missing out 2 points on Assassinate because he only had 4 characters, so I missed out on 2 points. Whereas he got 7 points on Primary, 4 on Herd the Prey, 8 on Knockmoond, and 7 on No Prisoners. So final score was 98 to 36. Yeah, it basically, our lists played very much the same, except I got to hit him first, and Tyranids just hit harder than Drukhari. At least Kraken Tyranids do in combat. So it's, yeah, we just found out that basically if you try trading 1-1 and Drukhari tries punching up, now that Drukhari have been nerfed enough and Tyranids are the newest book, Tyranids now punch up better than Drukhari do, and that was just very much the obvious after playing that game. And so because of that, I did go 6-0. I won the event with the Kraken Tyranids. I acquired this guy right here. Pretty cool new trophy. Yeah, then my teammate won second with Grey Knights. My other teammate, Tom Cohen, took fourth with Hail of Doom Eldar. And yeah, we kind of cleaned up on the event. It was definitely a lot of fun. And I look forward to playing plenty of new Tyranids in the future, especially these Kraken boys. I don't think there's anything I would change in my list. If I had to change something, it'd probably be Deathleaper and maybe the pod for some kind of, maybe a Haruspex? I don't know. I love the list. It plays so smoothly. The ability to auto advance 8 whenever you need it. I was using it on Zoanthropes to get like Warp Ritual. I was using it on the Parasite just to grab objectives. And if I wasn't doing that, then it was either going on the 9-man Warrior Brick to auto advance 15 and charge turn 1, or auto advance the Flyrant 25 and charge whatever I need and just pick something up before he disappears. And that combo is just insane. Yeah, we'll see what nerfs come out. I really don't think NIDs are as oppressive as people are saying. Obviously, I'm saying that after going 6-0, and I'm a little biased, but they are very fragile. Obviously, Leviathan steps around that a little bit, but only having 1 turn of an invuln is pretty difficult. You need to know exactly when to pop your defensive buff. And if you have a bad luck turn where you do bounce off your opponent, like in the mirror match, where my opponent did nothing to me, I then basically picked up half his army in a single turn. It was, yeah, it can get pretty. Tyranids are fragile, and if you're not playing Kraken, they can be very slow, and I think that's how you get around beating them. Having said that, I do think they are currently the best army in the game, kind of right there with Craft World. Craft World has a little more jank. Tyranids have a lot more just raw power. But I'd be fine with small nerfs to Tyranids and Eldari, and then I think the meta would be in a phenomenal place. I really hope the nerf bat doesn't come down absurdly hard and nerf us into the ground. I don't think it will. There's too much good stuff in this book for them to nerf all of it. So anyways, I will talk to you guys in the next video. My next major that I have is in Spokane, the Storm of Silence, at the end of May. So I will let you guys know how that goes, and hopefully I can pull another win. Thanks.